Well, here it is, another week of Canadian hopes, and I got to tell you, it's going to be an interesting week. We'll talk about the World Baseball Classic today, and I've had a chance to watch a few games, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we'll start with the team that stirs the drink for Maple Leaf, this Maple Leaf show. They are the blue and white Maple Leaf, and I guess Aaron. You know what they say, right? You have to lay in the bed you make.
Yeah, and the other saying is you always dance with the lady what brung you. But in this particular case, one day following the NHL trade deadline, OEL, Austin Matthews, and Craig Berube were asked for their takes on the departures. As everybody knows, Nicholas Roy, Scott Lawton, and Bobby McMahon were all moved at the deadline for some picks, which the Leafs desperately needed. But it's a tough day losing teammates, Berube said at Morning Skate. This was before their game against Tampa. They all meant something. They all had a part and a role. The three guys that we lost, I thought, played pretty well. We're going to miss them for sure. Matthews was asked about the impact of Lawton and McMahon, two teammates that he's known for the longest out of the players that were shipped out. Lottie fit in right away. He said he was only here for a year, but he's an incredible guy. And Bobby had a long journey and a long path to get where he is now, but he's an incredible guy and an incredible teammate. Another one who was on the trading block but never actually got moved was OEL, who in the days leading up to the trade deadline made his position very clear about where he wanted to be. Obviously it's a relief and I'm happy. He said, I still believe in this group. I think we can do something special. And it obviously it hasn't gone the way we wanted to, but I still like the pieces that we have. And I still believe in us. That's got to be tough for him, though, knowing that the Leafs tried to move him. According to some of the stuff that I've seen online, reporting from Frege and other NHL insiders, is a lot of teams didn't want to deal with the Maple Leafs because they were just too indecisive. They had trouble making up their minds, trouble actually pulling the trigger on anything. So we are where we are. Got 5 draft picks back for those 3 serviceable players, and glad to see that Scotty Lawton's paying immediate dividends for the LA Kings. He had a goal over the weekend and also had a goal this afternoon. I'm glad it's working out for him. It's kind of frustrating at the end of the day.
Well, if there wasn't enough to suggest that the Leafs need new management, a lot of people are dying to see that sign in the window that says under new management. It doesn't help to hear that the indecisiveness of the Maple Leafs management, namely Brad Treliving, made it hard to make deals with them. Well, that's the whole point here now. We're in a phase in Maple Leaf history where we're in the place where actually changes, as much as we talked about cultural change last year, this year we're talking about landscape change. We're talking about changing the landscape, not a cruise ship and moving the deck chairs. We're talking toss out the deck chairs, bring in some new deck chairs, and mostly for me, it comes down to, and for me, it's simple. It's not something I like to say or want to say, but logic tells me it's time for Nylander and Matthews to be traded. If whatever they can get for those two, they take it and move on. And here's my reasoning. It's really very simple. We know what Nylander and Matthews bring you in the playoffs. We know. There's no guesswork. And we can't say to ourselves, well, it's not Nylander and Matthews that are the problem. It's the people around them. We got to get the right people around them. Well, I think we've gone to that well enough to realize it doesn't matter who you throw in there, because the straw is still, the whatever's left of the core 4. It's the reality of the fact that we know what they're going to do in the playoffs. And here's the worst part, Aaron. We also have to figure this out. And this is the part people need to understand. When we get into a position where we're in the playoffs,
You don't think that Matthews and Nylander are going to squeeze their sticks a little too hard because all they've got is this history of, in I'm sorry, playoff incompetence. It's just they need a change. The Leafs need a change. The fans need a change. And since they're in this position where, the team is terrible, they need to rebuild the team. You can't construct it on a weak foundation. And Matthews and Nylander are weak foundations. Not because I don't like them, not because I'm just saying so, but because it's what we've seen. We know what happens. We've been down that road. We've seen the result. So it's time to move off those two if they possibly can. And this is why I'm saying, on top of what you said there, where, Treliving's indecisiveness is a problem from the other side. Well, it's a bigger problem from the inside.
And, I find Puckpedia's choice of a boat anchor next to players with no movement clauses is unfortunately pretty apt. With the fact that Matthews is getting $13.25 million a year, Nylander's getting 11.5, Matty Nyes is getting 7.75, and Tavares is getting $4.39 million, $3.89 a year. Those four players make up the vast majority of the money that they're currently laying out. Three of the four have boat anchors next to them, which means it's going to be really hard to move them. John Tavares has been dollar for value the best bargain signing of the bunch. I'm glad that he took the pay cut from $11 million a year. Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
Not this year.
But,
year.
With Nylander and Matty Nyes tied up until 2032 and 2031, respectively, moving these guys and getting anything in return for them, realizing that the Leafs are going into a rebuilding phase, is going to be incredibly difficult. So,
addition by subtraction. That should be the theme song for this organization. Addition by subtraction. Matthews is a wonderful talent, but one I'd like to see elsewhere. And the same thing for Nylander. There's too much that has happened with those two guys that begs a respite from watching them be your hope in the playoffs. If you're a Leaf fan, there's nothing to give you credence that they'll win something, especially highlighted by your point, Aaron, that they're the majority of the cap. So, it doesn't matter who they bring in. They can't afford to bring in somebody who plays better than them because they're occupying
the space required to get a good player. That's the problem.
If you thought it was bad before with Marner, they have almost $36 million tied up in Matthews, Nylander, Nyes, and Tavares currently. Max Domi is not far behind at $3.75 million, and Matthias Michelli at 3.42.
But those are numbers. Those are numbers, Aaron, that you can get. If they had, those are numbers that you could build on. In other words, if the difference between getting somebody like, let's say, Michelli, like you're saying, and getting a guy that's a little better, that's a better playoff performer, you might have to kick in $1 million or $2 million more, is my point. But they don't have it because they're spending so much on the top heavy part of the lineup that doesn't do anything for you in the playoffs, or doesn't do, like I'll say with Matthews, it doesn't do anything. With Nylander, not enough. But both of them, not at the right time. That's when the pressure's on, those guys disappear. That's all there is to it. And that's why addition by subtraction. That's my hashtag from now on. Addition by subtraction.
No, I hear you. And I'll be honest, the fact that we've got another $12 million tied up in Morgan Riley and Christopher Tanev, love me Christopher Tanev when he's healthy. Problem is, dude ain't, and he's not going to be ready until September of next year. He might not make the start of training camp if he experiences any setbacks or concussion issues or anything else like that.
That's not his fault. Nobody.
No. I understand that, but when he's healthy, he's a dynamic asset. But
I get it.
No, but this is the misfortune, and if he was healthy for the playoffs last year, there might have been a different result because he could have helped stop one goal, and one goal would have made a difference in that series for the Maple Leafs, right? So
yeah, it was close. That could have been the difference.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, here we go. players that need to stay healthy, players that need to perform. They just don't exist in the Leaf lineup right now. And I feel bad for Nyes. You know, I said to you before that he was getting overpaid. I would never have paid more than $4 or $5 million for that guy. I would never have paid more than that. And for him to want more than that, they would have been better off to jettison him and send a message, because I want to call the players bluffs. All right. Here's the thing. I want to call Matthews, Nylander, Riley, Tavares, and all these guys that say they want to be a Maple Leaf. I want to call their bluff. I want to call their bluff. So what they should have done was they should have said, you want to be a Maple Leaf, this is what you're going to get paid, because we want to have money to bring in other players. If they said yes, which they didn't, because I think their contracts speak to how much they want to be a Maple Leaf, because they're getting paid more as a Maple Leaf than they would if they went elsewhere. And that's the part that irritates me more than anything. This I want to be a Maple Leaf thing. It's time for management to pull that thread really hard and stop with the bullshit that we hear in the media that these guys want to be Maple Leafs. Show me you want to be a Maple. If you want to be a Maple Leaf, then charge like you would on a team you want to be a part of. But they made the choice. It was about money, not about team. So this is
and the other issue that we're running into here. Sorry, go ahead, Frank. Didn't mean to
No, I'm done. That was it.
I was going to say the other issue that we're running into here is this team is currently rudderless. There's no direction being provided by Treliving.
There's no leadership.
You know,
there's a guy running around with a C on his chest that isn't leading this team. You know, all he can tell us is how disappointed he is. There's no solution. There's no on the ice leadership. You know, it goes back to what we learned years ago. You know, for those of us that have followed, and we went through that phase where people would say things like, well, he's a good leader in the room. F the room. Who cares how good he is in the room? I want to see the guys that lead on the ice. That's who I want to see. Bullshit. Call bullshit on it. Let's see the leaders on the ice. And the Leafs do not have any leaders on the ice right now. Who's leading this team right now anyway? Machelli? 3 goals in 3 straight games? Is he the guy you're expecting to lead this team out of the wilderness?
You know, they've got until summer 2027, which is sooner than you think. You know, I mean, his contract comes up 2028. They're going to have to try to start deciding what they're going to do with that $13.25 million contract that they've given him, and the results they've seen so far.
They're going to get nothing. They're going to get nothing for him.
Yeah.
They're going to, if Treliving's in charge, they're going to get nothing for him. Which brings me to my favorite phrase right now. Oh, I thought you would know what it was.
No, I was waiting on you, Frank.
Addition by subtraction.
Right.
Addition by subtraction. And unfortunately, that's where the Leafs sit right now, where it's less important who they bring in. It's more important who they get out. And that's what the Leafs are right now. They're addition by subtraction. All right. So, and Treliving was kind enough to take responsibility. I mean, duh. Like nobody knew that. Like he was telling us, hey, in case you didn't know, it's my fault. Really? Oh, Brad, how interesting.
I had no idea.
Holy mackerel. I can't believe you're taking responsibility for this. You've been so wonderful.
Yeah, well, you know, the fact that they don't have a plan is certainly showing. Especially in their loss to Tampa the other night. That would be Saturday, March 7th. They managed to lose that one 5-2. And in gifting Kucherov 4 assists, he's managed to now put together 6 100-plus point seasons in a row. All they needed was the first period. They had 4 goals on 12 shots. You know, they had ample opportunity to put the Leafs away, and as it turned out, that was all they needed. You know, Machelli opened the scoring. Everybody thought that was fantastic, but you follow that up with McDonough, Gensel, Perry, and Bjorkstrand all scoring. Bjorkstrand scoring on the power play. And then you get Brendan Hagel scoring after they pulled the goalie when it was 4-1 5 minutes left in the third period. I'm not sure what's going on there. And then, Robertson finally gets one with 31 seconds left. And good for Nicky Bobby. The kid's been working hard all year long, just without the result that you necessarily would have expected. And they got outshot, they got outplayed, they got outchanced. You can't even blame Eric Furlat for this one. As much as you want to blame the referee, it just Kucherov and Gensel both deserve their first and second stars. The only reason Michelli got one is because you can't get skunked on home ice. So somebody had to get it for the Maple Leafs, and you may as well give it to the guy that's opened the scoring and is on a bit of a scoring streak. So, but
absolutely.
man,
absolutely. Let's go into our second period and let's talk about the Paralympics in Milano Cortina.
So Canada is actually having a little bit of a good time here. They're currently sitting at 7 medals, which puts them 11th in the standings. They've got 1 gold by Natalie Wilkie in para-Nordic skiing. She also got a silver in para-biathlon's women's sprints. Callie Erickson had silver in para-alpine. Mark Ahrens had a silver in para-Nordic skiing. And then rounding out the 3 bronze medals, you had Kurt Oatway getting a bronze in para-alpine. Tyler Turner getting a bronze in para snowboard cross, and Callie Erickson again with her second, his second, getting the men's Super G 6 in the para alpine. So, at the end of the day, good run for them so far. Just watched Canada put the finishing touches on a Paralympic sledge hockey game over Team Japan. Things are proceeding as they should, I think, at this point for the red and white overseas. So glad to see that.
Sorry, I have 2 puppies and I have 2 parents, and they're all howling because I'm in here and there's nobody out there to play with them.
Oh, no.
Time with them. Yeah, so they were howling out there. I couldn't take it anymore driving. I don't know if you could hear it in the background, but anyway, lovely. Puppies are lovely, let me tell you. Let's go to the World Baseball Classic. I'll start by saying this, and then you can talk about the game. Oh, God. That game against Panama. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I just so close. Unfortunately, they kind of came up a little bit short in that one. They fell into a 2-run hole in Puerto Rico, cut their deficit back to a single run after that huge RBI double from Owen Casey in the 8th inning. Thought there might have been hope, but that was as close to catching Panama as they got. After a rain delay in the 9th inning, Panama held on to grab a 4-3 win to end the night. That was Panama's first win in pool play and dropped Canada to 1-1. In other news, Mexico absolutely pants Brazil 16-0. They ended early with a 2-run shot from Julian Ornelas in the 6th inning after a stellar start in the round from pitch for Taijuan Walker. Former Blue Jay. Mexico carried a no-hitter well into the 5th, too, and allowed just 3 hits on the night. Israel beat Nicaragua 5-0, but was later eliminated earlier today from the World Baseball Classic. So that's their stint there done. Cuba beat Colombia 7-2. Italy beat Great Britain 7-4. Dominican Republic beat the Netherlands 12-1. Japan beat Australia 4-3. As it currently stands, I think the United States is one of the few teams left that are still perfect. But you'd expect them to do well because it's their national pastime. Anything less than a gold medal in this, I think, would have to be a big disappointment for them.
Let's talk about the Jays.
So Addison Barger's at it again. He hit a solo shot and added a 2-run single to knock in 3. As the Blue Jays, in a split squad game, won 5-0 over the Detroit Tigers on Sunday. He opened the scoring in the 2nd inning with his 2nd homer of the spring. Kevin Gausman allowed 3 hits over 3 in the 3rd and had 3 strikeouts. On the other split squad game, Toronto shut out the Baltimore Orioles 1-0. Jesus Sanchez drove in Arjun Nimala in the 3rd inning for the game's lone run, and Cody Ponce threw 3 hitless innings for the Blue Jays. So good news for their draft pick out of India, Arjun Nimala. Glad to see him having a little bit of success there. If he doesn't get in, I hope he has some success either in Dunedin or with the Buffalo Bison.
Tell us about the Raptors, Aaron.
They laid an absolute pantsing on the Cooper Flag and the Mavericks. They won that one 122-92. The Mavericks were barely over 40% from the field. 20% on three-pointers, committed 10 more turnovers than the Raptors, and couldn't take advantage of their edge and size in most positions. Now, Cooper Flagg had 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists, but Barrett had a pretty decent game himself. At the end of the day, just didn't look like they had their horses to bring it home. So Raptors next game will be interesting. We're getting towards the end of the season here, so things are naturally tightening up. So we'll have to see who they get back off injury and how well they do.
And with TFC, a good score, 1-0, something they've been able to do this season so far that they weren't able to do last season. That is put the ball in the net. I know one goal isn't much, but when your defense plays a clean sheet, one goal is plenty.
Yeah, and it all happened. It all started with Cincinnati goaltender Roman Celentano tossing the ball straight to Richie Laria. He fed Saloy, who footed it past him in the 86th minute. Hanging on. This is Toronto's first ever goal and win at TQL Stadium, which opened in 2021. Cincinnati had outscored Toronto 9-0 in 5 previous meetings, 4-0-1 in that time period. After conceding, Cincinnati came on strong, but Toronto, who had already lost its first 2 outings this season, managed to hold on for the win. So glad to see them get one in the positive column.
Let's talk about Canada's tennis players.
So, Victoria Mboko is on to the 3rd round of the Indian Wells tournament. She defeated Australia's Kimberly Birrell 6-4, 7-6 in Friday in second round women's singles action. She had 7 aces to 5 double faults and broke on 5 of her 7 chances. Mboko later teamed up with Russian Mira Andreeva to upset the 4th-seeded women's doubles team of Elise Mertens of Belgium and Zhang Shao of China 6-4, 4-6, 10-8 in the opening round. Felix Auger-Aliassime defeated wildcard Gael Monfils 6-7, 6-3, 6-4 in a match that took 2 hours and 17 minutes to play, and then unfortunately had to put away another Canadian, Diallo, to continue advancing. Shapovalov of Richmond Hill bounced Thomas Martin Echeverry of Argentina 6-3, 2-6, 7-6 in a marathon. That one took 2 hours and 39 minutes. He was going to be facing Yannick Sinner of Italy in the round of 32 men's singles. So all good things at that point. We'll see how everything pans out for the rest of the week and keep everyone updated.
Okay, let's get as lightning round as we can. F1.
Interesting race. Piastri didn't make it to the start. Max managed to move from 20th to 5th. And it was a Mercedes-Benz lockout at the front with Russell and Antonelli winning, followed by Leclerc and Hamilton, who still hasn't had a podium. A bit distressing, but at the end of the day, fun race, lots of lead changes.
Habs.
Still 2 points after being dominated by the LA Kings. So, at the end of the day, they managed to steal that one. Slavkovsky played well. He's been absolutely fantastic since he's come back from the Olympics for them. Jacob Dobish played spectacularly as well. They're now heading back home for what will be another tiring week featuring a couple of back-to-backs, including one against Toronto a little later in the week.
How about those Sens? 4 points back, Aaron.
Yeah, and you know what? 4 goals in the first couple of periods actually helped them win 7-4. I saw they were up 7-2 late in the third period. It looks like in garbage time they managed to get some back. Tyler Clevin, Dylan Cousins, and Michael Amadio scored. Linus Ullmark made 17 saves to help Ottawa improve to 3-1 on a 5-game road trip. And Shane Pinto had a goal and 2 assists.
And the Flames proved that there is such a thing as addition by subtraction.
Yeah, even after sending away Nazem Kadri with the players that came back the other way, Mackenzie Weegar was out as well. They were led by Joel Farabee and Ryan Strome. So, good news for them. They ended up managing to take the win 5-4 over the Hurricanes. It was a little bit touch and go, but at the end of the day, they came out on top.
Golden Knights beat Oilers.
Yeah, the Oilers managed to beat the Knights 4-2. Las Vegas has now lost 5 of their last 6 games. They've lost 15 out of their last 16 games against teams in playoff positions, which is slightly concerning. at least for the fact that they were pinning their hopes on getting Marner to take them to the promised land. So we'll see how everything pans out for them.
The stars are starting to align the way they don't want to. And the game of the week, probably the month, and even possibly the year, the Sabres and the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, in this one, there was a grand total of 102 penalty minutes, 17 penalties for the Tampa Bay Lightning, 11 penalties for the Buffalo Sabres. The box was absolutely full. And another incident that came out of this, Brendan Hagel was assessed a $5,000 fine for jumping Rasmus Anderson from behind. So
wasn't that a high stick?
No, there was a little bit of pushing and shoving and in front of the net, and then Rasmus Anderson decided he didn't want any part of it, and Hagel jumped him from behind and started punching him while he was on the ground. So he got a $5,000 fine for that. But at the end of the day, 8-7 for Buffalo. Great to see. They're now in first place in their division.
The Atlantic Division is a horror story once again, but different participants. Florida and the Leafs out. Buffalo, Montreal, and Ottawa could be in, at least in the wild card. I really like Buffalo. I mean, I don't like Buffalo, the place, but the team's pretty good. I like the team.
With 84 points, they're 2 points clear of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're 5 points clear of the Detroit Red Wings. That was definitely a game. And as it currently stands, Buffalo's actually sitting now 5th overall in the league behind Minnesota, Carolina, Dallas, and Colorado. So this is shaping up to be a really interesting lead up to the playoffs.
General manager takes over, makes no changes, but it looks like a completely different team.
I get the feeling it might have been Kevin.
Aaron, I say this all the time, is that leadership is everything, and I'm wondering to myself, and this is why, there was a time there in November, late November, early December, I was on David's show talking about maybe they should get a new coach. I really felt that was necessary, and I got talked out of it. Because they went on a little bit of a run, right? That December run that they convinced everybody, hey, maybe they got a shot. One of the times they convinced people they had a shot, but it turned out they didn't. And I don't know. Like, again, my new phrase comes into play: subtraction by addition by subtraction. And that's what Buffalo did. They got rid of the GM, and that's all. They only got rid of the GM, and it was two different teams. It's amazing the difference the Sabres were prior to Kevin Adams leaving. And they're talking about, people are asking if he'd be a good replacement for the Leafs. God, no. Get people who win. That's what we're looking for here. That's what Leaf fans deserve. Guys that know how to win. Or women. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the door's wide open for anybody that can orchestrate player movement or player attitude that leads to wins. And that last part's important too.
You know what? Honestly, from your lips to management's ears, I hope somebody sees this and takes it to heart, because, oh my God. And here's the funny thing. Us fans have been pointing out the flaws and deficiencies in this team for years, but nobody listens to people on social media.
Aaron, here is this is the problem. When you can actually look in the mirror and say, I could run that team better than the Leaf management can. When I can say that, that's not me saying I'm smart, or that means the bar is really effing low. That's what that means. If I can actually look in the mirror and honestly look at myself and say, the things I said all these past few years, if they would have done it, because now they're admitting people are admitting those are the mistakes that were made. Like we're talking 4 years later about mistakes that were made 4 years prior. And I, kicking and screaming, didn't want to see those moves being made, but they were. So that's the sad part, is that when the smartest people, when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, aren't working for the Maple Leafs, the Leafs have a problem, because they pay people. They can give people good money to run the team. It's not like, they're handicapped. And the one thing that no one can compete with them with, and Aaron, I know you'll agree with this, when it comes to spending money on management, there is no freaking ceiling.
No,
can
you
get
need
the
to
best
find
guys
somebody
you want.
who's you need to find somebody that's smarter than you to run the team better than you. That's the rule. And I'm
Well-
not really sure what's going on with Pelly, but the fact that he's in charge of 6 different teams is going to cause a problem because nobody can run 6 teams.
Well, did you hear that? Did you hear that? There was a mention about the Nyes being traded thing, and apparently somebody above the CEO didn't want them to trade Nyes. That means somebody, probably last name Rogers, said don't do it. And that's the problem with the Leafs. They need to have somebody who has the ability to have the authority to do the right thing and not be not kowtow to the people above. This was what happened with Shanahan and Dubas. There was an argument over whose way should go, and they went halfway on both. And in the Bible, there's that story, about the baby being cut in half. It's no good to anybody. So somebody has to give in to make the team better. And that's probably the biggest problem the Leafs have, is that they don't have a one-stop leader. The buck does not stop in one place in Toronto. It stops in too many.
Yeah, and that I think is really the issue.
And
the whole deal with the Matty Nyes trade was, if you get an offer you can't refuse, then don't refuse it. But apparently
go ahead.
Apparently they didn't get an offer that they couldn't refuse. So, at the end of the day, if you want to try to trade somebody and it's not a market for sellers, then that's an issue. But according to most folks, this was a market for sellers, and Toronto couldn't capitalize on that. So here we are.
Hopefully, here's what I'll say, what I'll take out of this experience with Nyes. Hopefully it's a prelude to what happens this summer, because a shot has been put across the bow of Matthews and Nylander, that if Nyes, the latest great hope that the Leafs have, is up for sale, then they are. And this team will be a better team without Nylander and Matthews. That's a promise I can make to all of you. And to say that they're a better team, they could be a better team without him, is the same situation with a low bar, when I can be smarter than Leaf management. Not because I'm smart, and not because the team is going to be that much better. It just won't be that bad. How much worse can this team be? The team with Matthews and Nylander, or a team without Matthews and Nylander? How much worse can that team be? Is my question.
Well, let's hope that the team has the stones to get something done over the course of the summer.
Addition by subtraction, my friend. That's my new thing. I'm going to keep saying it until it actually happens.
It's locked in.
He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm a subtraction, addition by subtraction. We'll see you now Wednesday. Have a great time, everybody. Enjoy the week.